Hi, my name is Ciara Harrison. I'm an artist and arts facilitator, and I'm going to be showing you a series of stitches and mark making techniques that you can make on everyday fabrics that you have around the house. For example, a tablecloth, napkin, even a pillowcase. This project is inspired by fabric that I inherited from a great aunt. This is one of them, which is an old tablecloth that I've now stitched on to make my own. So I'm going to be showing you a series of stitches that you can do, as well as different ways of making marks. The embroidery hoop is a helpful tool to have, as it helps to keep your fabric taut so that you can have even tension throughout your stitches. To measure the length of your thread, I suggest using your arm as a measurement and keep it at that length and no longer. For this running stitch, I'm using a basic hand sewing needle with pink embroidery threads. Embroidery threads have a series of strands, which means you could use one strand or you could use all of the strands. So it could be very thin or very thick. If you don't have embroidery threads, it's totally fine to use basic thread that you have at home. It'll just mean your stitch is that little bit smaller, which can be absolutely lovely. Alternatively, you could use wool and a thicker needle, such as a darning needle, and then you'll have lovely big thick running stitches. It's important to remember that in order to keep our stitching in place, we're going to also be putting a knot at the end. In order to do this, I suggest leaving a length of stitch for us to put that final knot in. So I'm going to suggest 2 lengths of your thumb. So once you know that's how much you have left in your needle, that's when you want to stop stitching and you're going to put your knot in. The French knot is an embroidery stitch that creates a small 3-dimensional dot on your fabric. Depending on the size you're looking for, you could do this with regular sewing thread, or you can do it in wool, which is what I've chosen to do here. Because I'm doing it in wool, I'm also using a larger needle. I've chosen to use a darning needle here, which has a much larger head on it than the typical needle. The size of your dot also depends on how many times you wrap the wool or the thread around the needle. I would suggest wrapping the wool between 3 to 6 times around your needle. It can be nice to even vary this and to see the different sized knots that you get. The bullion knot or bullion stitch is created in much the same way as the French knot. Like the French knot, you also wrap the wool or thread around your needle, but instead of putting the needle back in beside where your thread came up, which is what we do with the French knot, for the bullion knot, you stretch the wool out or you leave a gap. So instead of being left with a dot, you're left with something that looks a bit more like a worm. And the length of that is up to you. So the more times you wrap it around your needle, the longer your bullion stitch or bullion knot is going to be.